A long-term creative project can be a great way to really extend your skills and master your craft. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about some ideas for long-term projects that you can incorporate into your fibre arts practice. I've also got an update on some projects and just a little peek at what I've been doing while I had my week off. If you're new here, my name is Becca and I'm a hand spinner, knitter and dyer, and you're very welcome to my, fibre arts corner in my home in West Wales. So what do I mean by a long-term creative project? Well, it can be anything you want, really. I think there's no sort of hard and fast rules about it. However, generally, it's going to be something that's going to take you months rather than a couple of weeks. And it's going to be something maybe that you give a bit of time to each week for 6 months or a year or however long you decide that your project is going to last. I think sharing it is also quite important. I think that's a good way of tracking your own progress and also maybe encouraging others to get involved if it's that type of project. So I asked in the community post if people had long-term projects, and a lot of people responded with basically kind of learning a new skill. And I definitely think that is something that kind of falls into the category of a long-term project. So for some people, they were new spinners, so learning to spin, or new weavers, or spinning, knitting a cardigan, which obviously is going to take quite a long time, particularly if you're maybe using a drop spindle, which obviously is even more time consuming than if you're spinning the yarn on a wheel. So it can be any of those things. So last year my project was called the Discarded Project, and I made all my work out of what essentially would have been waste products. So spinning with lap waste, then I got a lot of offcuts from a mill and made various things, sort of tea towels and things with that. And with the natural dyeing, I was actually using and collecting things that would be considered weeds. So that was my project, and it was about a year long, and really I did it for my own entertainment. And I didn't particularly share it. I mean, I shared it a little bit on social media, but not a huge amount. So that was really last year's project. This year's project has most definitely been this YouTube channel. I set my word of the year at the beginning of the year, and it basically was story. And this year has been about, or for me, it's been about telling stories on the YouTube channel. What that has done is it means that I've actually learnt a huge amount. So I've learnt how to talk to the camera, I've learnt how to sort of edit. Still a bit cronky, my editing, but so I've learned a huge number of things. So just putting it out into the world, YouTube videos out into the world, is part of the creative process, and I've absolutely loved it, and I really hope that you've enjoyed coming along for the ride as well. And I am going to continue. So I think, and I've said this many times, YouTube was just a distraction for me to try and get myself back on track with how I earn my living. And it absolutely has done that. It took a long time. I was very burnt out, and I was creatively absolutely stuck, and just did not want to turn the computer on and do graphic design, which is what I do to, earn a bit of money. So it's worked from that point of view. I've gained so much from it. All these amazing people that I've met. Okay, internet met, but it's been fantastic. So it's been lovely to build a community, and I definitely want to carry on with that. So that has been a very successful creative project for me. I am also thinking about some other creative projects. Now, if you know Bex from the Tiny Fibre Studio, you'll know that her channel, she started, I don't know whether she started, but certainly for quite a long period of time, she was following along the 52 Yarns to Spin Before You Cast Off book. I think that's the title, that was published by Ply magazine. And that's another really good way of actually having a time-bound project that progresses and is going to improve your skills. So I definitely think that's a really good project. If you're a new spinner, maybe that's a project you might like to look at. I will link Beck's channel, and I will also link the book. So if that's a project you fancy taking on and maybe sharing it on Instagram, I will leave my Instagram link. I sort of took a bit of a break from Instagram, just, you know, because it's social media, you know, it gets a bit tiresome sometimes. So yeah, but I dip in and out of social media. But if you are somebody that maybe has a long-term project, either a YouTube channel like this, or you could have an Instagram page or Facebook, or actually have an exhibition. So if you were maybe had some finished products that you wanted to enter into a local exhibition, that might be another project that you could take on. So there's lots of different things that we can do that are our long-term creative projects that are progressing our skills. And do they necessarily have to have an end goal? I think that's up to the individual. I thought it'd be helpful to give you a little list of projects that you might consider, and I've got them written down, so specs on time, otherwise I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, I mean, I think it's debatable whether I know what I'm talking about quite a lot of the time, but in theory I know what I'm talking about. And okay, so I've written down handmade wardrobe. So I'm not talking about the kind of the thing made out of wood, but actually the clothes that you wear. Maybe have 6 months where you only have new clothes that you've made yourself. Then only knit from the stash or only spin from the stash. And you could say, for the next 3 months, I'm only going to make things from the stash, or a year, or, you know, probably depends how big your stash is. Then breed studies. Breed studies are great. They're really good ways of expanding your skills because they are just so diverse, and you can go from sort of something like a merino, which obviously is very, very fine, to something like a Welsh mountain, which is completely different and very, very coarse. And so you're going to have to spin them in different ways. I actually have an idea for a breed study that I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Then okay, so the dye garden. So that was the other thing that I wrote down, and my other project really has been growing my dye plants, and I'm sort of at the point where a lot of the work has been done, and it's now just really hoping that the plants grow. Did have a bit of a kind of almost a disaster in that the slugs ate quite a lot of the woad, and they also ate every single one of the red onions. So, you know, but that's gardening, isn't it? And you just go with the flow. So yeah, so that project has been another long-term project that I've had, and it's sort of coming to its conclusion, or the growing part is coming to conclusion. So it's going to be the actual making of the dye is going to be the next stage in that process. Okay, so those are my ideas. Love to hear what your ideas are. Please feel free to share them in the comments below. So, project updates. If you were here last time, you will have seen this pattern, and this is available as a freebie on my website. I will link it in the description, and it's just a scan. This is an out of copyright sort of 1960s knitting pattern, written in British knitting terms, and also in inches and with old needle sizes, so it's not metric. I'm knitting model A, and a few days ago I sat down, and this is the video of my process. Welcome to the stash. This is all my hand spun yarn, so I'm going to turn the camera around and show you what we've got. The pattern calls for 3 balls of yarn, and it's two of the main colour, one of the contrast colours, and I've probably got that in here somewhere. So I'm going to need about 120 grams of the main colour and 60 grams of the contrast colour. See, I'm quite liking these Oh, the dog is probably about to bark at the vacuum cleaner, which is in the corner, so I may have to stop in a minute. I'm wondering if that's enough of a contrast. This is quite groovy, I quite like that as well. Oh, what else have I got in here? I'm not worrying too much about the gauge because I do spin roughly kind of between double knit and Aran, and I'm going to be able to adjust needle size and gauge if I need to. They're too close. No. Okay, I quite like this. This is dyed with alder, which there is a video me dyeing with alder, which I will link somewhere in the description probably. And yeah, I mean, actually it's 2 different batches, but is it going to be close enough? Is there enough? I'm going to go for it. I think I'm saying that's my main colour. And do you know what? I think that's going to be my contrast. Yeah, I think so. Now, do I have enough of this? I actually think I've got some of this as unspun roving. So if worse comes to worse, I can always spin up a bit more. Okay, so decision made. My next job is to check my gauge. And so I'm going to have to do some knitting up, but I'm just going to first do a quick wraps per inch. So as I never tire of saying, wraps per inch is only ever a guide. And I just wonder how close this is going to be. I think this might be spun a little bit bigger than I initially thought it was, but I can live with that. I can do a bit of maths, it'll be fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. So what is that? Yeah, it's Aran weight. The thing about this pattern, can't see the picture, this pattern, and I'm doing that one, is that it calls for size 3 needles. And when I say size 3, I mean UK old money size 3, which is, according to this handy dandy little guide, is 6.5 millimeters. I wouldn't normally knit double knitting on 6.5. I'd normally knit it on something a bit smaller. It is going to be interesting to see how this knits up. So yeah. So handy dandy little wraps per inch guide, and that is from Hilltop Cloud. I will link her channel and her shop below because she has a great channel. She is also another Welsh fibre artist, and she is based in Mid Wales, as I'm right on the coast in West Wales, and she sells some yarn, mostly spinning supplies, and she is an indie dyer as well. And she's also got some online courses, so if you are wanting to learn to spin, then Katie at Hilltop Cloud is a really good person to learn with if you need to learn online. If you can go to an in-person class, I would always recommend it. You know, spinning is such a tactile thing that really being able to actually have a live class with a real person in real life is always better, in my humble opinion, than actually learning online. Anyway, right, let's do some knitting. Okay, so this is how far I got. Now, if you are following along with Model A, with the knitting, there's a mistake in it. Now, this goes to show if you're going to share knitting patterns, maybe knit them first before you share them with everyone. So this says cast on 49 stitches. No, 49 stitches doesn't work out. So 48 stitches. And I suspect that when the pattern was sold, I'm sure they knew there was a problem with it, or they knew fairly quickly, but there was probably a little typed correction that actually went in as an insert, but over time that's got lost. So yeah, note to self, practice before you share knitting patterns. Anyway, it's kind of working out. It's quite groovy. I haven't done an awful lot of knitting this week. Haven't done any spinning at all. The garden's really taken priority, and it was a bank holiday on, well, I'm recording this Saturday, so it was the Monday before was a bank holiday in the UK. I'm pretty sure it was a federal holiday in the US, Memorial Day, I'm sure somebody told me it was Memorial Day, and it was just spring bank holiday in the UK. The schools have been off. It's been really, really busy locally, lots of visitors, and yeah, lots of fun events going on. So, you know, I've been doing other things. Okay, so that is that project. It's underway, and I will give it a bit of love this week, and hopefully, potentially finish it. I mean, it's pretty quick to knit. So yeah, and the 6.5mm needles and this gauge of wool absolutely knitted up fine, and I knitted a test swatch and actually it was to gauge, so I suspect that I knit quite tight. I suspect that's some of it, and also that maybe double knitting yarn in the 1960s was a bit different, maybe. Anyway, it's working out and I'm very pleased with it. So okay, so that's that project. And next project, put this back there. Okay, so finally, second sock. So shared this ages ago. There you go, one sock, second sock, and this is the continuation of the sock spin along from my Woolen Mitten. I will get it finished eventually. Okay, so that is that. Then I was really talking about self-care in the last video, and I talked about actually getting all my crazy ideas that were swirling around in my head and actually writing them down, and there they all are. And this is my jar of possibilities. So these are all potential projects that I want to do, but rather than having them racing around in my head, I've put them on paper. They're safe here. They're not going to be forgotten, because for some reason, I kind of think I'm going to forget about them. Probably not, but anyway. So there they are. They're safe. And every time I'm having a kind of, oh, that would be good fun to do, I'm writing it down, putting it in the jar. And a couple of things that are non-knitting related and non-spinning related, I actually did do from the jar. So I will just share those. Okay, so these are little abstract painted bookmarks, and it was a project that I saw on YouTube. I will link the project in the description below, and I did make a little tassel for that one out of the sort of remnants of, I was going to say ugly yarn. It's not that ugly, but it was kind of like not very much left, so it just went in the kind of the bag of not very useful yarn. And yeah, they're good fun, and I had all the supplies anyway, so I did that. Then, oh my goodness, I went down a rabbit hole. Now, if you're of my vintage, you probably have heard of fanzines. I'd heard of fanzines, but I hadn't really cottoned on that zines were a big thing. And boy, did I go down a rabbit hole looking at zines. So I made myself a little zine, and this is a greetings card that my sister sent me. And then I just put some pages in it, which are just sort of from the recycling pile, and then just wrote myself little notes, and they are supposed to be positive, and it says this covers a little note, and I've written underneath, to yourself. So I've just, you know, written down, what have I written down? All sorts of random things. But some days you must draw yourself as a mer person, and then I've got a very kind of scribbly sketch of me as a mer person. So that was good fun. And then I have this other little card that was actually a thank you card from my nieces for Christmas presents that I sent them. So I just got one of those little corner things, rounded off the corners, and I'm going to put little thank you notes and gratitude notes in this. So that will be my next zine. And these are just for me. I mean, zines, again, Google it. It's a whole thing. And gosh, I have put some more in the jar of possibilities, some zine ideas that at some point I will do, because I just think it's fab and it's really accessible. And yeah, I think the world probably needs some zines about hand spinning and natural dyeing and, you know, all those good things, sock knitting. So I've got lots of ideas in there, but they're safe and they're not swimming around my head. They're swimming around in the jar of possibilities. So there you go. That's sort of the non-knitting things I've been doing. So I also have a book that I want to share with you. And this again is a non-knitting book and non-fibre arts book. It's Strands, A Year of Discovery on the Beach. And I saw this being reviewed by Viv of What Viv Did Next. Again, I will link it in the description below, and she's one of my favourite YouTubers. She's not a fibre artist, she's a textile artist, but she lives a very simple, frugal life in London, and she used to be a book dealer, and she reviews books, and this is absolutely a treat. If you know the west coast of the UK at all, you will be familiar with certain beaches that are very sort of flat, and some of them could be quite muddy. And I mean, I grew up next to the Bristol Channel, and this is not set at the Bristol Channel. This is sort of much further north, sort of near Morecambe Bay, but they are very similar sort of aspects to them. So I haven't got that far into it, but I'm really enjoying it. And Jean Sprackland is a poet, and it certainly is written in that style. Her prose style is beautiful, and it's not a difficult read, and I just thought I'd share it because I'm absolutely loving it, and I thought it might be a book that you would enjoy too. Now, that is me done for the week, and I haven't videoed any wildlife, wildlife. I don't video wildlife, I mean outside. I haven't videoed any outside space today. So after this, I'm going to take the dog out for a walk because she's due for a walk, and I'm going to go and see if I can find the early summer orchids that I know flower at this time of the year. And if I find them, I will drop them at the end of this video. And if I don't find them, well, I'm sure I'll find something to share with you at the end of the video. So until next time, have a wonderful creative week. We're back on the side of Dinas Mountain, and it's very green behind me and lots of flowers, and I have just seen the orchids. So I'm going to turn you around and show you what I've been talking about, because they're lovely. See you in a moment. And this is what I've been looking for. And I don't know how well the camera's going to focus on it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take a better picture and drop it in. But it's very beautiful. And I will also put the Latin name on screen. Yeah, that's a bit better. That, I think, is one for the sketchbook, which, if I'm happy with the end result, I will share with you. So this is where I filmed my very first video, which was about dyeing with gorse bushes, and it was in February. I didn't actually put it out until much later, but you can see it didn't look like this in February, and it's beautifully green and full of lots of wildflowers and the promise of fruit to come on the hawthorn. The sloes have already flowered. But yeah, here we are, having a lovely time. I hope you enjoyed that little breath of fresh air. It's always lovely to take you out in the beautiful countryside in West Wales. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. You know how YouTube works. And if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, please do that as well. I write about every other week, wool related, spinning related subjects, most of the time. Sometimes it's not, you know, kind of random stuff that's in my head. I'm not entirely sure that sells it. Anyway, I will leave a link in the description below. Bye for now.